Welcome to From the Kitchen. Let's cook healthy meals. My name is Karen Vasselbush, and I am a registered Ayurvedic practitioner, board certified with the National Ayurvedic Medical Association, and also a massage therapist for over 30 years. And today we're in a different kitchen. I'm down in a family cottage, and we have it's a smaller kitchen, but we do still have some of the regular equipment. A lot of good meals have been cooked in this kitchen. This cottage was built in the 30s, and gee, when it was built, I think we had, of course, they didn't have telephone. We didn't have telephone for many years, and there was a pump at the sink that I recall as a kid, seeing that big pump with big handle, and we always, as a kid, if we could pull that pump down, we were, it was a real exciting thing. In fact, this coffee mill right here is from the old time part of the cottage. So we're going to make flatbreads today, and flatbreads are some of the oldest known. They're known all over the world. In France, they're called crepes. In the Spanish countries, they're tortillas and chapatis, and in India, they can be called dosas or rotis, and they're made, some of them are made by fermentation. So I have one recipe that I did that I started yesterday. I had to, start early on that. But before we get into the cooking and actually making something here, I wanted to talk about flours from grains and legumes. Because I have a list of them, and I can email them to you too. But the flour, you can always take and grind things like oatmeal to make a flour with for people who are gluten sensitive. So the first grain I have is amaranth, which is America's oldest crop, and I found out, I didn't know this, it's related to pigweed. It's a very prolific plant, and you can eat all of the plant. It's eaten like a cereal. It's roasted or ground into a flour, and you can use about 15% if you're into any baked goods, or even greater amounts for unleavened breads. I don't have an example of amaranth, but I have examples of some other flours here. Barley is also a grain that you can get. It's as old as wheat, actually. Swaths of barley used to be found from North Africa all the way to Afghanistan, and it's a popular staple in Tibet. In England, when wheat surpassed barley for baking, barley became the grain of choice for making beer. In fact, they say the English word for beer comes from barley. And it's interesting, I learned that the linear measurement system, they say 3 grains of barley laid end to end equaled a YNCH, which later became the word for inch. So who knew? I mean, of course they had used measurements of grains and things to measure things. It's interesting. And a grain of barley of the weight became the word for gram, because we have dry measure. So, that's kind of one of those things, kind of interesting when you start researching these things. You can find barley as pearled barley. I didn't bring an example down with me here to the Cape, but you've seen pearl barley. It's round, or Scotch barley. It's a little flatter, and quick cooking barley, or barley grits, because barley takes a long time. Usually you soak barley, but you can grind it as a grain and make it for barley flour. First, you'd roast the seeds, and then you grind it. And again, I think you'd probably experiment, maybe use only 15% in your recipe. Now, the other one I do have an example of, and if we get to it, hopefully we get to it today, and this is Garbanzo bean flour. It's called chickpeas. Chickpeas. I actually brought a can down with me of pre-cooked chickpeas, because there's a recipe I love to make that's called, from Kripalu cookbook, called Chickpea of the Sea, and it substitutes, instead of fish, you use chickpea to make a salad. So chickpea flour looks a little yellowy, and I'll open that soon. But that is ground up chickpeas. It's called besan in India, and they're really a legume. They're a bean. They have a higher fat content, but they also are a good source of fiber. So a lot of these flatbreads I'm talking about, you can eat. They're good sources of protein, They're good sources of complex carbohydrates and fiber, which is, you know, really a good thing. And usually, you know, they're like thin. You can wrap them with vegetables inside, or you could have them with a, in the summer, if I couldn't find any mints, I didn't bring any from, I have prolific amounts of mint in my garden, but I just didn't bring it down. But you can make a cilantro mint chutney, and I've talked about that in other from the kitchen classes. That's a great chutney for this humid, hot. The heat index down here is, I think, 70, probably where you are too. So it's pretty warm, and you know, usually you don't think too much about having a heavy meal. So a chapati with some light soup and chutney would be a perfect meal. Now, another flour that I bought, I was curious about and wanted to try is coconut flour. And coconut flour, says on the package, again, you can replace 20% of that flour with up to 20%. I'll show you what it looks like. It has a nice sweet smell. My husband has used it when he makes his famous zucchini pancakes. So it just looks like a little bit like that. It's just, you know, I can tell you, it smells like coconut. you can have, I'm gonna hold it up to you, take a sniff. Okay, it smells like coconut. So that's another one that I like to play around with, and I will add it to, you know, I might add it to this. I have a zucchini recipe we're going to do with, you know, almost like a zucchini pancake with the chickpeas, and I might add a little coconut to that just to kind of sweeten it up, because in the summer you want to focus on a lighter flavors. In Ayurveda, the qualities of the summer, of course, is fire and water. It's that heat, the pitta heat, and the humidity. And so you want to introduce cooling tastes, neutralizing tastes, and, you know, somewhat dry. So coconut's cooling because coconut grows in a tropical climate. So it's meant to help those people in that climate. You know, so coconut water, we have coconut, you know, flakes, whatever. So coconut, I wouldn't make it myself because I think you have to dehydrate that, and I don't have a dehydrator, so I just bought the coconut flour, so you can use that. Millet is another grain that you can grind. That's native to Africa and Asia. So these are all gluten-free suggestions here. Millet is a grain that says grows in harsh conditions, and it's considered the poor man's food. And if you've ever seen it, it's a little tiny yellow hard grain. It's similar to wheat, but it has great amino acids more than wheat. And the U.S., in fact, you recognize millet because if anybody had a parakeet as a pet, they're mostly the little bell that you get, you know, you give them food, had millet in it because they used millet for bird seed in this country. We didn't consider it to be a grain that you eat, you know. So remember those little tiny little seeds that the parakeets would eat because they needed nutrition too. So it's like rice or cereal, but it can be roasted and ground to make a flour for unleavened bread, and it adds a crunchy texture. And when I say roasting, what I do is I take a pan, like a flat iron pan, and dry roast. I have one here, actually. I can show you. Big flat iron pan. You hear a lot of noise in the background, which you see where the stove is. But, you know, I take a flat iron pan and I put the grain in, and I roast it. I love to roast. I love to use gas. We have a gas stove here, fortunately. There it is. There's the gas stove. So that, I'm going to just do one more thing here. Sorry. I'm going to just, yeah. So the gas, I'll be cooking. We'll be cooking with gas soon. Okay, so we'll be doing that cooking. So you can practice dry roasting. You have to stay with it when you do dry roasting. I mean, you really have to watch what's going on. I'm going to put back on gallery view. I like to see you people. Wait a second. Where are you? No. Okay,
Sorry. Technology, I love it. You know, it's really funny because I come down here by myself and it's lovely. I feel like I'm inviting you to my cottage and gee, could we go down and take a swim afterwards? You know, it's only 800 steps down to the ocean. But probably not today. It's pretty hot out there. So oats can be also used, and I have these are rolled oats, but you can see oats come as grain, you know, as a grain. I'll show you. You know, you've seen, you know what rolled oats look like. That's pretty basic. We've all seen them. The rolled oats, and you can, by putting them in the blender, you can make oat flour. Why don't I do that right now? This blender, we have lots of stories down here. This blender, my sister tells me every time I see her, she says, you know, I got this blender as a wedding present. And she brought it down here. It's an old Hamilton Beach blender. And it works. Pardon me if it's going to be loud right now. Because, you know, it's a really, this blender is indestructible. It won't break. So I'm going to crumb it. And I could go on and do that a little more, maybe, you know, if we wanted to get, let me just show you. I'll use it for something sometime. But you could see it's beginning to flake. So it's beginning, I don't know if you could see, get a little bit of glare here, but it's beginning to get a little powdery, and that can be used. You can roast that. You can do all kinds of. The other thing we have down here that I'm not used to is we have a garbage disposal. I have a composter at home, so I'm like, do I really throw this down the sink? Oh my gosh, that seems foreign to me. I'm gonna clean that out. So yes, so you can, you know, if you are grinding, I'd say start with a small amount because, you know, you don't want to mess up your grinder. If you have a food processor, that may work, but to get the really fine grind, I think you need either a hand grinder, which isn't been which is clean, doesn't have coffee in it, or you know, electric grinder. You can do that. It's just that they're small. So those are oats, and oats you make them by doing the blender here, and in baking they're gluten-free, but you can also use them in yeasted breads. But again, 15%, because otherwise your yeast is not going to rise because there's nothing in here to make that rise and happen. Interestingly, I didn't know that oat groats, when you soak an oat groat, a seed, then they remove the hull and then they roll them, and that's how you get rolled oats. So they're actually rolled through, you know, a mechanical process. Isn't it amazing the way we invent things, you know? Now the next one, I do have an example of, this is quinoa. Well, I'm not going to open it because actually I'm probably not going to use it today. But I'll just show you the colors. This is multicolored quinoa. So this is quinoa I get. I'm never make any money with Bob's, but anyways, I get this at Bob's. It doesn't say it's organic, but I'm assuming it says no GMO and actually USDA organic. So I have taken this and ground it. It's really easy to grind and make it for a breakfast cereal in the morning. It's quite delicious. And I just have a preference for the tricolor. I think, you know, it just has kind of more of a taste. So quinoa is native to this northern hemisphere, and it's a staple by the Incas. It's not really a grain. It has more complex proteins, iron, B1 and B2. So the seed is cooked. When the seed is cooked and it splits off its outer shell, if you ever cook them, you'll see this little ring that comes off the outer shell. And some people describe it like it looks like the circle around a planet, you know, the rings around Saturn. So that one, it has more protein in it. And let me see, quinoa, I said quinoa, okay, rice, and the rice flour I bought. Rice flour, because you can get brown rice flour, you can get white rice flour. I have it's hard to keep things dry down here because it's so humid. We're so close to the ocean. So I bought a bag of rice flour, and I'll probably be using some of this. This is white rice flour. It says product of the USA, and I'm not guaranteeing this is organic rice because it doesn't say it on the front, but you know, I think it's it's still probably okay for this. So those are the flours that I came up with. There are probably others that I haven't thought of. Yeah, sure, you can use almond meal and flaxseed. My husband makes a bread every week. It's called the no knead bread. And, you know, we don't eat a lot of bread, but it's kind of nice to have a slice every now and then. In fact, I can even make it into croutons if I want to. And he adds ground flaxseed into that bread, so it gives it more nutrition. So that's my spiel, and I can send you the email about the grains. But what I want to do now is show you what I did with this dosa. Let me get my recipe out here. So this dosa, I started it yesterday. I took 1 cup of white basmati rice and a cup of tor dal, of the white lentils. They're like blonde colored lentils. Show you them. Take it out. Give you a picture. Show and tell. So these are the blonde lentils. If you can see that. Yep. Okay. So, whoops. So I took a cup of those and I washed them in this pan. And you have to wash them several times because, again, there's the natural pesticide on the back of the lentil, on the lentil seed itself, and that has to be kind of washed off. So I took my sieve and I washed them in here, and I washed them, and then I had to put water over them. So they're sitting, the rice and the lentils were sitting in this pan with water on them, and I put them on the windowsill, and they sat there for 6 hours. Then I drained them out. You know, I drained out the mixture with a sieve, of course, and I put it in the blender with 1.5 cups of water. And what you have, get my big spoon. You let that sit overnight, and what I've got here is like it's like a pancake batter. Like I can put it I'll put it in a glass dish and you can see it better. But yeah, you could probably see that. So, and it smells like it's been fermented a little, but the fermentation isn't bad. It will make the dosa actually lighter. And we're going to cook this on a non-stick griddle, a non-stick pan on the stove. So that's one flat. And this is so easy to make. I have never made this. And I mean, it takes time. That's all. It takes the time of the rice, and with the beans, and then soaking it, and then you have overnight. And if you're in a cold climate, you can put this like you would with bread, our no-knead bread. We put it near the stove or near someplace that's slightly warm. All I had to do was put this on the windowsill here because it's just, it's amazingly warm here. And this, again, is this, it's going to come out to be a wonderful dosa. And I'll show you the photo. This is from Kate O'Donnell's cookbook, Everyday Ayurveda. The photo of that dosa hopefully will look like this. It's going to look like this nice crepe-like bread. I'm excited about that. I'm going to have to drop some off the neighbor's house. There's a woman that lives next door. She's in her 90s, and every year I visit. We just take a quick visit. I saw her out in the yard, and I could probably just leave something for her. So that's the dosas. What I'd like to make right now. Oh, how are we doing the time? I hope we're doing well. Just check. Oh, okay. I'd like to make the avocado roti, and I did make this at home. I'm going to cover that up. This takes 1.5 cups of mashed avocado. So I brought some avocados with me. Get them out of the fridge. Now, first of all, never put your avocados in the fridge. I was instructed by my, like my apron, I was instructed by my daughter, my California daughter. The avocados will ripen in a paper bag on your counter, and they will. You know, that's the way you're supposed to do it. But when I got down here, they were ripe. I was like, oh no, you're gonna get overripe. So I put them back in the fridge. And I'm gonna take them out now. And I'll show you. She also instructed me on how, do you know how to slice? Raise your hand if you know how to open an avocado. I was taught there's a specific way, and it's sort of interesting because it's almost like when you're opening up a mango. Mangoes have a very long, tough seed inside. So you take it and you just go around circumference like that. And then the fun part is you turn it in opposite directions. And there you have it. It's so much fun. Don't mind me. All right, I'm gonna get a bowl. I'll be right back. Here we go. This is such a tiny kitchen that I had to have other things on the other side. So I'm gonna take and scoop out the avocado. We're gonna, oh, this one's fine. Yeah. I have taken the seed of an avocado and actually sprouted it and grown a little mini tree. I don't know if any of you ever did. I think I did that when I was in my 20s. It's kind of a cool thing to do. You have avocado trees around your apartment or something. But in fact, my best friend named one Parvati and the other one I forgot. Krishna and Parvati. I'm like, oh really? They're a pair of avocados with names. So they last a little bit. So I'm probably not going to do that today. I'm going to take and probably do another one. This one's a little softer. That's all right. So we're using 1.5 cups of mashed avocado and the juice of a lemon or lime. Yeah. Take the seed out. I'm not putting this down the garbage disposal. I think I've learned there's some things you do not do. It seems like it's funny. It seems like it's funny because this is not a primitive place, but it's a summer place, but we have certain amenities. So I'm just gonna toss that. I feel so bad about that. But we, this morning when I looked outside, it was foggy. Mr. Skunk was walking along the fence, and I thought, oh boy, don't put anything outside because we don't want to attract that. All right, I'm just gonna put that away. Okay, so I'm gonna mash this. This is another vintage, potato masher, 1950s. That's not that long ago. All right, so I'm gonna mash that. I didn't measure it, but I may go backwards and measure it. Other thing we have down here, I have 1 4-cup measuring cup, and then I dug out this ancient aluminum, which is not, I usually don't use aluminum, but this has been around forever. This is a 1-cup measuring cup, and then I have actually we have some modern ones that we bought. I guess back in the 60s when plastic was popular, we started getting the plastic ones. But then we moved into, the modern day metal. So I'm just going to measure this to make sure I don't over or under project. So that's about a cup. Might be enough, but maybe I'll just take that other avocado half, of course. Let's speed things up along here. I'll take that other avocado part and just mash it. So to this, I am going to add juice of a half a lemon. And I had that prepared already. I opened a lemon, and I think that the juice adds, first of all, it preserves the avocado from becoming brown, but I also think it adds flavor to the mixture. So I'm just adding, I'm guesstimating that that's about a half a, it's good enough,
Okay. Now, where's my big spoon? That's what I love this. Oh, here it is. Excuse me. Okay. So to this, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and salt down here is everything sticks together. So I bring it in a paper bag, a plastic bag, because it's just, you know, it gets, like I say, it's humid again. And with that, I brought my spice box down. I've talked about this before. This is a great way to carry your spices with you. What do I have in here today? Well, what I brought were the standards for summer. I always carry turmeric with me, which is the orange. I always carry the turmeric. I have mustard seeds I use in some things. I brought cinnamon. And here I'm looking for cumin. So I've got that little cumin in this. And you know, I think you can get these spice boxes. I graduated in 2012 from New World Ayurveda in Gorham, and we were doing cooking and stuff. And I found this on Amazon, and I bought it, and I have not regretted it. I really enjoy it. And I've probably gotten into more cooking with all the 6 tastes of Ayurveda more now than I did when I first left the school, because I was, you know, I'm just still absorbing and assimilating, you know. And it's always some more things to learn. So from here, we're putting in 2 cups of flour. Now, I have made this before, and I made it with regular whole wheat flour, just because it was a little easier to manage. Today, I'm going to experiment. Let's use a little bit of coconut flour. If I can open it. Yep. Let's go get the scissors. Excuse me. So everything here is on little hooks. My grandfather loved to cook, but he was the standard, you know, he cooked American food, but he cooked really good Italian food. He worked for the street department, and I think those guys used to cook and bring their food with them. I mean, this is way back, you know. So I think they used to do a lot of their own cooking. So I'm going to take and measure about, I'm going to put at least a 1/4 cup of, what the heck, why don't I just use a cup of rice flour, see how this works. Never tried this before, but I'm always the first time. So this is a 1/4 cup measuring. My other one's already been used. Okay, so I've got a cup of that. And then I'm going to take and use a 1/4 of a cup of coconut flour. Beauty of having an apron that doubles as a towel. It's great. I remember one 4th of July, we were down here and it was really warm, and we were cooking lobsters. That I would not repeat. Too much. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to stir that around and see what it looks like. And I'm probably going to add what I'm looking for is a consistency when it starts moving away from the dish. So it starts to, let me just move that away. It starts to, you know, this may be enough. That's crazy, but it may be. And I'm going to wash my hands, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up using my hands to get into this, to really knead it, to get it to mix well. So back to the sink. Also, we're going to put a little pepper in there. Add some pepper. I've got some ground pepper here. All right. Pepper. Get that out of the way. Yeah. So it does look green. You can think of it like pistachio, but these things taste really good, and you roll them out to be very, very thin. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just knead this though right now. Knead it some more. Might be adding a little water to that. You check my recipe. I've only made this once before. Yeah, let me just check that for a second. No water is added to this. So this is, look at this, it's forming a dough, it's forming a circle. So it's moving away from the, and you see that it's moved away from the bowl. So here it's just a great, nice dough ball made with rice flour and coconut. Ooh, I can't wait to taste this, it's gonna be good. So what I do is I take and make it into two separate balls, and I'm going to just let this sit for a minute because they say let it sit, probably because so it can absorb everything. So I'm just going to clean this up here, and I'll start preparing, making the crepe, what we'll call crepe, I just spiced it up, the mixture I had here, the dosa. We're gonna cook that. So I'm gonna let that sit, and I think I can just, I don't even have to cover that. So let's move us over here to the stove. I think this is a 1970s stove, so I have to light it with an igniter now because of piezoelectric is not functioning, but it does work. It works. There's an ocean breeze. There's always an ocean breeze that comes in through these windows, so that of course affects the flame. So this is a non-stick pan. I'm not that crazy about it, but it's okay. I have a griddle at home. I really love. If you have a non-stick griddle that goes over 2 burners, if you have gas, that is the best way to cook these things because you're cooking them individually, and and you're watching them, and then putting them on a platter and keeping them warm. So for this one, we're going to add a little coconut oil. So I've got about a teaspoon, maybe a little less. How that goes. And add more. And this is opposite my stove. I have to know which way to turn the burner. At home, my stove goes the other way. So I'm just gonna heat this up. Coconut oil, and that smells really good. It's, coconut oil. Lovely. Just gonna kind of get that around, and then I'm gonna take a spatula. I got 2 of them here. And just kind of like make sure everything is smooth here. To test the heat of the pan, you put a little water. You probably know this. You put a little water in the pan. If it sizzles, then you know it's hot. So I'm going to give that a few minutes. What we're going to do, I've been cooking down here with turmeric. Uh-oh, my spatula. I'm making all these plastic things yellow. So when my cousins come down, they're going to be, there she goes again. I don't know. They're good cooks too. My cousin Tim likes to make a chowder, and he doesn't follow the Ayurvedic protocol, but he's a good cook. He puts the main ingredient in the food, and that is love. So when you're cooking, and I should also mention this, is when you're cooking, you really need to have your mind be on happy thoughts because it can affect your taste and your food. So they say. So I was gonna just try a little bit of water if I can get a tiny bit from this kettle. You always keep this kettle on the stove, and the ritual I have when I leave this place, everybody always like, did you empty the kettle? You didn't leave the kettle full of water, did you? I don't know why that's so dangerous. But it's not quite ready yet. I don't hear a sizzle. So I'm going to have to wait. I'm going to turn it up. Let's see what's up. Oh, that's up. Okay. Yeah, it's not ready. You know, it could be something to do with the temperature here, the humidity. I'm not, I'm sure a scientist can tell. Because things are different. So now I hear it crackling. All right. So let's take this exciting, I'm going to stir it up a little bit because I'm sure it did settle some, Yeah. Put it on. Spread it out. I want to make it thin-ish. I'm going to have to add a little bit of water to this. Seems like it's a little thick to me. Maybe from sitting. Yeah. You know, there's French-Canadian ploys. I didn't even know about ploys until I moved to Maine. Because Massachusetts gal, we don't have ploys. But that's the same. They use buckwheat. They use the leavener, I believe. And so what am I putting on? I'm putting on a little bit of cilantro on top. So how do I know it's done? Well, when I start seeing the edges drying and bubbling, and I still think I can, well, yeah, you can almost see that. Yeah, kind of, Then I know it's getting close. And to be honest, I haven't cooked these before, so this is as new to me as it is to you. I have made the other ones. So after I cook this one, I want to go back and show you how I roll out the avocado bread, or the avocado flatbread, roti, R-O-T-I, that's what it's called. So this looks like it's fun, it's working. This is an excellent source of protein because you've got beans and rice here. So really, if you added, what I'm going to do today is it's so hot here, I have some Swiss chard from home, and I have a zucchini because I don't think we'll get to the second recipe. Maybe we'll do that next time if you want. Vote on it, let me know. That was the zucchini pancake one with the chickpea. I'm going to do that. My husband, our first zucchini, this is some costata romanesca. He grows these very different types of zucchinis. This one is just fantastic. It always stays small. It doesn't get to be large. So I'm going to cook that today and just have that because it's just warm. So this is almost ready to go because it's like, whoa. I flip it, but I don't think I'm going to flip it. I can't quite do that. Let me just flip. I'm going to have to do both sides. That's close. Still a little bit. Not as brown as I'd like. I'm just going to let that stay for a minute. I think I can just kind of let that be and put the cover back on. This. Yeah, so this one's taking a little longer. It's a little gummy looking. I think that's because this pan I'm not familiar with this pan. I almost would wonder if I'd use I have a very large stainless steel. I might use that one. This is a beerware. I brought this down. It's immense. But it would be something you could use, Or I might use I think cast iron is very good because it keeps a longer heat. It really holds the heat. I'll just say it holds the heat. So you just have to watch. If your cast iron is cured well, you can't go wrong with that. So, yeah. All right. Where was that? I'm just going to leave that. Maybe, what I'll do is I'll put a diffuser in there. I bought these diffusers. These diffusers you want to have if you're cooking with gas. You want to have a heat diffuser. Because if you're making lentils or dal or anything, it's beautiful. It's perfect. We'll just watch that. So let's go back over here to the cooking area. Let me see. Okay. And my rolling pin. Oh, I'm gonna go get that. Honestly, I don't know why we have a rolling pin down here because I don't think anybody's ever made a pie, but I'm glad we do. So what I did bring down though is my, I have a pastry. Maybe you know about these things. I don't got this years ago. It's a piece of cloth, and I use it for rolling out pastry. It just works really well. Probably not even going to use this cutting board. Here. Knife. So I probably am going to use just regular white flour to roll this with because I'm worried about the stickiness that it might have a problem. So if you could try your rice flour, but I flour the whole. I flour the pastry, the cloth. Just flour it up. And I'm going to take one of these, make it into a cylinder. So I have the two balls, and I'm going to roll it out into a cylinder shape. Pretty easy. This is pretty forgiving, this recipe, I think. From there, I'm going to cut it about 6 times. Well, let's see, like 4 times. So I'm cutting it in 4 pieces. And I'm going to roll the first piece to a ball. Flatten it out a little bit. Now we're going to be making the roti. You always use more flour than you think. So if I'm going to roll out a circle, I like to move it around a little bit. This one's coming apart. I think this is flaking because of the rice flour. Because rice doesn't have the stretchiness that gluten has from a wheat. Because, like I say, I made it with wheat last time. So you just have to kind of encourage it, maybe even with your fingers. I think I like cooking so much right now. It's because as a massage therapist, I'm taking a little hiatus until we really look at what's going on with the COVID. I have a lot of clients with comorbidities and they're older. So I think this kind of takes the place of working with my hands. I get to do an extra little massage on the avocado roti. So this one, maybe they're not going to roll as well as if they were with a gluten. You know how gluten rolls? I mean, it stretches and rolls and stuff. I think that's pretty good. I'm making it very thin, as thin as I possibly can without tearing it. And I'm going to just turn it over. This is why I like the pastry. I like this pastry because I can turn it over now. I'm going to bring it over the pan and put it on the pan. I'm going to start cooking it. And I will turn you around as soon as I get the flour off my hand. So we'll see how that works. And I may have to turn up the heat because they like a little bit of heat. So let me turn you around back to the stove. Yep. Maybe just put that there. When I first got married, though, I was in a 2-room. We lived in a 2-room apartment. So, and there was there was a bedroom. I'm sorry, there was a bedroom, a living room, and a little tiny galley kitchen. A galley kitchen. I think the stove had two burners. And my husband came from a family of really good cooks. Oops, I'm sorry, it's my out. You know what? I'm going to move it over. I think it's the sea breeze. So my husband came from a family of really good cooks, and he could put up a really decent meal on the little 2-burner stove. And when you're young and you're in the honeymoon phase, you could live anywhere. You could probably live in a trailer. You wouldn't care. A little tiny, whatever. And some people still do live in small places. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. So I am just going to, I moved over a little bit because, again, this breeze just knocked out that flame. I had no idea that was happening. And I'm just going to cook them. So experiment with this and play with it. It can be lots of fun. And while we're doing that, we have a few more minutes. I wanted to show you a probiotic drink that is really good to, it is an Ayurvedic drink. It uses yogurt and water, and it is misnamed the lassi, but it's not a lassi because it doesn't have any sugar in it and it's not thick. So I'd like to show you that with the blender. I'm going to move back over here. And we'll just pick up this. I'll roll these out later. I have an alternative, what do I want to say? A reason for this is because I want one before lunch. This is called Takara, Takara, and it calls for the little bit of, wait, gotta get the yogurt. It's 4-to-1. Okay. It's 4 parts water to 1 part yogurt. Whole yogurt. Okay. If you want probiotics, I don't know if you could try it with coconut yogurt or soy yogurt if there's probiotics in that. Honestly, I didn't have time to look that up. So I'm putting in 1/4 cup of this into my sister's Hamilton blender. Hamilton Beach blender. My goodness. Thing is never, this thing has never died. I mean, it's over 25 years old. Granted, it's not used a lot, maybe as much as, if we were home using it. But then I use a cup of water. I'm just taking, I'm going to use the water from the tea kettle. I do boil my water down here. Sometimes they do a little work in the street with the system and just make sure everything's fine. So you put in a cup of water in the blender. Go back to my spice box. You're going to be using a small amount of cumin. So these actually, if you get this set, these will come with little tiny spoons, and they're 1/4 teaspoon measurements. So I take 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, open the lid, put it in. Some Ayurvedic doctors called Vajas don't use salt with dairy. They say it's not good for you. I wasn't taught that way. I was taught that you could add a pinch of salt to this. So I am going to do that. I do have to say that food combining is important. Yesterday I bought a beautiful piece of cod, and I'm not making, instead of adding milk to make a chowder, I use a vegetable broth, because milk and fish are considered incompatible in Ayurveda because of the heaviness of one. Fish is a cold water, it's a cold animal, it's cold and heavy. It's flesh, it's guna quality. And milk is very dense and nutritive, but it has a lot of protein things you have to break down. So usually you don't combine those two, or ever. You don't, not even usually, you don't combine them in Ayurveda. And I found I could make a really good fish chowder with sweet potatoes in place of white potatoes, with celery and parsley and the broth and the cod. It's so fresh here. I mean, it's Cape Cod, so hey, what can I say? All right, so I'm going to turn this on and blend it for 1 minute. It's going to be a little loud, just so you know. Go back to may not have been a minute, but anyways, I want to show you the whole procedure. So the next thing you do is you actually take out the bubbles. Bubbles are not considered something that you want to be drinking because it's gassy and just want to move it away, not have it in your body. What this does is it's a probiotic, but it's also supposed to help clear the channels out of it, clean the channels in the body. Those microcircuitry channels, I can strain this. I'm going to strain it a little bit. You can still see bubbles. Now I recommend just whole milk yogurt. I bought the Greek style, and I think that was a mistake because it's a little too creamy. But I just want to show this to you. I'm going to taking off some more bubbles. Promise you I'm not adding anything to this. So here it is. This is your probiotic drink. You do not refrigerate this. You just drink it. You drink it about 20 minutes before your meal. If you don't want to drink that much, just don't refrigerate it. It will start separating, and you'll start seeing water, at the top and heaviness in the bottom. And it's thinned. It's yogurt, but it's got the probiotics in it. And, the water, it helps it just. Yogurt in and of itself is a guna that's heavy, not to be eaten just as yogurt. Especially yogurt fruit, and we have these combinations. I can talk more about combinations if you're interested in that, how they work and how they kind of just disrupt the digestion. Because we know that in Ayurveda, digestion is king. So let's go back to my doses. A few minutes left. See what happened to them. They are a little greasier than I'd expect. And I think the rice made them a little, this, I'm going to get a platter. I have one out in the other room. I'll turn you around for a minute. Whoops. At home, I have soapstone counters, so I could put plates down on the counter. I have to remind myself, don't do that here. I've got a platter. You get to see the other end of the pot. It's just a little sweet summer plate. And here are the doses. Here they are. Bon appetit. So we have the roti on this side, which is the avocado, and then we have the dosa, the chana dal dosa. Yeah, on this side. And I wish you were here. I'll take you out to the living room. Let me disengage disengage this. Okay, you can still hear me? All right. So here we are. You can sit down and eat with me. But if you have any questions, why don't we can open it up for that. If we have a minute, I think we have a minute or so. I'm not sure. I will certainly send you the recipe emails. I can send them to you, Diane.
Okay, great. Thanks, Karen. That was fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to try that avocado one. That looks cool.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it, and
Yeah, it looks good.
they keep for a while. I forgot to mention that when you're cooking them in succession, you could put a little olive oil on the top after you take it off the heat, and then put the other one on top, and that will give it more flavor. With one of those brushes.
Great.
So that
Great.
would be. Let's see what they like here. Let's see. I'll give you well, they're a little crumbly. Oh. Yeah, that tastes a little rice. It's the rice flour.
Yeah.
Crumbly, but it's not bad. It's almost like eating. It feels good, like it's eating rice. That's been heated. And the other one, I think the other one's got a little bit more. What did I put in the other one? Oh, I put coconut in the other one, right? Yeah. And it's crunchy. Remember I said coconut flour is crunchy? This is crunchy. But it's kind of fun. And I would probably not, see my hands are greasy. I would probably figure out a way to do it on the cast iron to make it not too greasy, because oil in the summer is a little hard to digest. But a few of these, think about the protein amount. I'm sure in other countries they eat these because they need that. They don't have the bounty we have in this.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Great.